Today I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about rods and rings for the om606. So here we have a stock om606 rod, and the way it's positioned right now, this rod would be facing, or the front of the engine would be facing me, so the engine's going to go in a clockwise manner. And we can see that we have the bearing lock on the correct side. And there's also writing on only one side of the rod. Now, the documentation shows markings, but it kind of looks like arrows or lines. This rod does not have that. It simply has a stamp. If we look at the cap for this, the cap can go on either way. Right? It's symmetrical. You can see by the wear mark here that it was on the same side. It's oriented correctly here. But notice that the lock is on the same side as the connecting rod lock rather than the opposing side. So in theory, it could spin. Now, that's really not going to happen because the tolerances are too tight and this cap would have to spin with it, and it's simply not going to happen. Well, I say that, I can't see how that would happen. So again, you can orient this cap in either direction. If we look at the side here, we have a stamp on the same side. And again, that seems to be somewhat consistent with the documentation. So it would go in the engine like this, again with the front of the engine facing me. Now let's look at the aftermarket Auto Verde rods. If we look at the piston here, you can see the arrow is up top. So let me orient this correctly. Okay, so with the arrow facing me, again, the front of the engine would now be facing me. And if we look at the lock, it is oriented on the correct side. What's different, though, is we have pins in this rod. Okay, so we have pins, so the cap can only go on one way. So I like that feature. So it is oriented, the cap is oriented correct. But if we look, the bearing lock is on the opposite side now. So in theory, that would prevent any chance of this bottom cap bearing from spinning. Again, the likelihood of that happening in this engine, I would think, would be next to impossible, but it is an extra intentional precaution. So I like the fact that it is keyed. It can only go on one way. Now let's go to the rings. So here we have a set of OEM rings from Mercedes, extremely expensive. Not sure I would buy them again. However, what I like in the pack is it actually shows you the positioning of the ring on the piston. So I thought that was a nice, simple thing for them to do. But let's look at the piston itself. So here, it's going to be hard to see probably with the camera, but there is a bevel on these rings. On the top ring, that bevel faces up on the head side. On the second ring here, that bevel also faces up. It's hard to hold the camera and show you at the same time, but maybe you can see it there. And of course, the bottom appears to be completely symmetrical, the seal ring. Now, according to the documentation, all of these need to be at 120 degrees to each other, and that is pretty much it. So I want to thank you for watching. As a newbie to om606, I thought information like this would have been valuable for me, and hopefully somebody else finds value in it as well. Thanks for watching.